Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome in Sharpening the Edge podcast, week number 10. It's great to be with you. Brandon Justice is on the screen, and so is Lucas Reimink. I'm Dennis Fithian. We're all members of the Maize and Blue Review. You know that, and you also know that we're here picking games, 8 or 9 games, Michigan State, the Lions. We've got 3 locks, either in college, in pro. Then we have a prop, we have a parlay, and then we have our outright lock of the week. And so we've got a lot to get to. We'll give you our records as we make these picks, but I'll just jump right into it. You know, Lucas was first in. He's been waiting. He's been telling me how that, you know, he loves the Michigan game and he's ready to make his selection. What we do know is that Michigan is favored by 26. There's an over and under of 45 this week. Lucas, what was your record last week, and what do you think of this Michigan game?
5-3 last week. And that one of the losses was up by 1 point, so it was really close, 6-2. I finally hit a parlay though. That's the good news. So
oh, that's fun.
I actually did hit one, so I keep that rolling. And then as for this game, the 26, I don't know. For me, it kind of comes down to like if Michigan's going to score touchdowns in the red zone. I saw somewhere this week that Rutgers is really bad in the red zone defensively. Like they allow touchdowns at like an incredibly high rate, among the worst in the country. So maybe this is a good team to play for Michigan to finally solve those red zone things that they've been going through the last couple of weeks. But my favorite bet in this game is actually a team total. I'm going to go Rutgers team total under 9.5. This is low. It might be a bit of a sweat late. There's always a chance for backdoor touchdown or field goal to push this thing over. But I think looking at this game, I think that could realistically be a shutout. Rutgers true freshman quarterback who they started last week in his first game did not look good. He's the highest quarterback recruit in Rutgers history, so I think they're kind of trying to get the ball rolling for him to take the reins over in the future. I don't necessarily think that he's really ready right now. Looked really bad last week against Minnesota. It was 6 for 17, 68 yards and an interception. And Minnesota's defense has also gotten pushed around by a couple offenses in recent weeks, so it's not even like Minnesota plays tremendous defense or anything like that. So I think Michigan is significantly better than Minnesota on defense. Rutgers going with the true freshman quarterback. I don't see them having much of a ground game that he can lean on to take the pressure off of him. So I will go Rutgers team total under 9.5 for my favorite bet in this game.
Wow. All right, Justice, you're up, and you have been leading the way the entire time. I mean, you've got gambling sites calling you and wondering if you cracked some kind of code or something. I'm wondering the same thing. What's your record now, and where are you going with this Michigan game?
Last week I was 1, 2.
Go mute.
Yeah, I like how he's muted himself. Maybe he had a bad week for the first time.
Mike has not unplugged in a long time, fellas. That was, if anyone's a continuous watcher of the show, recurring guests, they would know that reference. But the mic is back on. So last week I think I was 7-2. The parlay hit. ECU, a couple others were good. And then this week I am going with the total here in Michigan Rutgers, the game's total. At under 45. Rutgers' last 3 straight games have gone under. Michigan's been under 4 out of the last 5. Don't see this game as one where Michigan's going to push the needle and try to, like, there's pretty much no discord here between these two teams. I think this is like Michigan off of one of the most emotional events in college football, right? Like history, maybe. Having to go into New Jersey on a road trip. I don't think Michigan's gonna cover. I don't have it in me to bet against it, but I don't really think they're gonna cover either. But because of that, I think you made a great point, Lucas, in making your selection. Rutgers probably won't be able to score against Michigan on Saturday. And with that in mind, I don't think Michigan's going to push the needle much. And I think when you put those two things together, you're looking at a low scoring game. I mean, I had the final at 31-7 or 35. I think I had 35-7. So 42 points total is right around where I see it. And that's where I have it at under 45.
All right. Oh, under 45. So here I am going against you guys. I like Michigan to win this game. 38-13. I really like that over, but if you add that 26, that actually makes me like Rutgers plus the 26, and that's the selection making. Although maybe I should go off and let's just change it at the line. I do like Rutgers plus 26, but I like the over 45 more, and that's what I'm going to take, over 45. So that gets us to an interesting game. Interesting in that there's a lot of things going on off the field and in this game. Michigan State is getting 17 points on the road. As we know, they showed a lot of fight last week, but it wasn't on the field. And this time they're going to actually have to play 11 on 11, not 8 on 1. So with that, Lucas, how do you see Michigan State plus 17 at Illinois?
Yeah, I'm going to take Illinois in the points here. I'll lay the 17. They struggled to contain Corum in the ground game last week. A lot more than I thought they would, to be honest with you. Chase Brown, I don't think he's quite as good as Corum. The offensive line isn't quite as good as Michigan's. Illinois sort of plays like Michigan light, diet Michigan, if you will, sort of like that sort of play style, though. And then with all those suspensions that MSU is having, most of them, or maybe all of them on the defense, 8 guys suspended definitely right now. Like 3 of them were at least had started games for them this year. A couple of them are like front 7 backups who like they rotate in, they're depth guys. Like these guys play for Michigan State, so all 8 of them being out I think matters. And I think like mental fortitude, I guess, is kind of a question mark for Michigan State. I'm not really sure where they're at mentally following everything that happened last week. Both, the fight and getting embarrassed against your rival in prime time. I just think this is a spot, sort of a letdown spot for MSU here. They sort of have an uphill battle to even make it to a bowl game. We'll see if that happens. I just don't see them keeping it close against Illinois. I think Illinois pulls away in the second half, so I'll take them to lay the 17.
Over to Brandon Justice, who's going to take this selection and I think is going to follow suit. How could he not? Let's hear it.
I'm actually going to go back to the under here, the same way I went with Michigan and Rutgers. It's at 40.5 right now, and I think this has a lot to do with pace of play. Illinois likes to do what Michigan does, and that's control possession, control the clock, kind of get out of there and win the ball game type of deal. You saw that against Nebraska this past week on Saturday. I think you see something similar against Michigan State. Illinois' defense is extremely good. They're second in the country in red zone efficiency, 7th and third down against third down conversions. They've given up the second least amount of first downs. They have the best least amount of rushing yards allowed. Somehow they're 129th in points with all that in mind. So that's where things get kind of like conjumbled with Illinois in the case of Illinois. But with Michigan State dealing with what they're dealing with, I think Illinois kind of understands, or at least they will understand at least a quarter or two into this game, up, let's say they go up 14-17 nothing, and they probably just cruise control it. I think their defense is going to be able to stop Michigan State, control Michigan State, and handle them. Defensively, I think Michigan State doesn't really stand much of a chance to defend what they have there. I think that the scheme matched with Brown, there's just really no way to stop those two things for Michigan State on Saturday. So I don't want to take a side just because it's too – if we could have got it at, I don't know. I don't even know what it projects at. And the projections obviously are wrong given the nature of the situation. That you can't really put that into data, right? But it's just one of those things where 17 is too many for me in a matchup where the teams probably aren't uneven talent-wise. So I will stay with the under at 40.5. And the sharps are all over that too, for whatever that's worth. I'm just vetting out there.
You're our sharp. You're our sharp.
Appreciate that.
Every time you make a pick, you're like, oh, there's where the sharps are at. That's our sharp. I wish I knew, like, Michigan State is such an undisciplined team on and off the field, and obviously in the tunnel, if they didn't commit so many penalties last week. But, they penalties, felonies, it seems criminal to even think about taking them. But I'm going to. I don't believe in Brett Bielema. I really don't believe in Illinois. It's not like I believe in Michigan State, but I like taking 17 points. So I'm going to take Michigan State plus 17 as much as it kind of like, leaves something in as just an undesirable taste that makes me want to spit when I think about it. But I'm taking Michigan State plus 17. Speaking of undesirable and making me want to spit, let's go to the Lions. I need a straitjacket. I better just stay out of this this game after last week. I picked the Lions outright. I'm sitting back 21-7. I'm like, I know this team so well. I've got this one covered. It does make me sick. They're getting 3.5 points at home to a Packers team that is very desperate. Lucas, are you laying the magic 3.5? It's a tough number, or are you riding with the Lions?
I think I'm actually going to go with the Lions here. This is mostly like an anti-Packers thing.
Oh,
Because the line last week, like you mentioned, it was 3.5 in favor of the Dolphins. So if you translate that over to this game, 3.5 for the Packers, like I just think the Dolphins are significantly better than the Packers. So that's sort of my reasoning there. Lions are at home. I think that helps. The Packers haven't been good. Maybe this is a get right spot for Green Bay, but I haven't seen that like from them yet this year. So I'll continue to bet against it until I see that they become the team that I thought they could be coming into the year. So that's why, yeah, I'll take the Lions 3.5.
amazing. Brandon.
So everyone's on the spread. I was trying to see where the sharps were at by now. I saw the line and I made the pick. When it comes to the Lions, I just don't feel like data is serving us the same service that it is with college football. I mean, the NFL does a lot for us, no doubt, but the Lions, they're a peculiar type of team. The way that they behave in certain situations are far different than that of another team. You cannot expect them to do what the status quo is, which is, hang on to leads or stay in games for 4 quarters and don't still lose by 17, things like that. At 3.5, this is a motivated Packers team. I think they got a good matchup. I know Aaron Rodgers hasn't been the Aaron Rodgers we know and love this year, but he still very much is a talented quarterback who is going to come in against a really bad defense with a ton of support from the run game and Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. And I think what the Packers can do in play action against the Lions is really going to be the detriment of the day on Sunday. And ultimately what I think is the difference in the 3.5. And I like Green Bay by a touchdown here. Maybe 4 points if it gets a little funky, but I think 3.5, the hook I love. I always love 3.5. Here's a little nugget, I guess you could call it. There's a system out there where if you're taking a NFL underdog 4.5 or better, just take it money line because most of the time they beat them anyway. I don't have the exact number on that. It's something I read up on or heard about or whatever. Did it a few times, and it's not perfect, but it's quite the method and it's fun. So if you're out there and you're willing to take the Lions on Sunday, technically from a betting perspective, you're not wrong for taking them with signals on a dog. You want to go for that money line there. So.
Yeah,
I'm not.
Yeah, it sounds good. I have a method when it comes to picking the Lions too, especially when they play the Packers. And the Lions, if it's an end of the year game and they're looking to springboard themselves to the off season and do away with draft position and everybody that wants them to lose, they'll win that game. And they've done it a lot. But if you go back and look, when Aaron Rodgers is really backed into a corner and he has to have a win, and it doesn't matter where he's playing the Lions, he wins. I like you. I will gladly lay that 3.5 points, and I will take the Pack, the team that I hate the most in the NFL. I'm selecting to cover the 3.5 over the Lions. Not a lot of fun making that pick. Let's go to Lucas, who is going to have some fun giving us 3 selections here.
Sure. So last week I went with 3 of the bigger games of the week, and it worked out pretty well for me. So I'm going to try and do something similar to that again. I'll start Florida State, Miami. Rivalry, obviously, in Miami. Not that makes much of a difference with the crowd that they can draw at times. I just think Florida State's a significantly better team here. So I'm going to lay the 7.5. Miami's had a lot of quarterback issues recently. Jake Garcia, Tyler Van Dyke, they both have been sort of mediocre-ish. There's a lot of Van Dyke hype coming into the year, hasn't really lived up to it. He's been hurt, been benched at times. Jake Garcia's come in. He hasn't looked a whole lot better. Sounds like they're going to go back to Van Dyke, but he, like I said, he hasn't looked good. The receivers, Miami, pretty bad. The defense, not that much better. They really struggled. Was it last week that they played Virginia and went to like double or triple overtime or whatever and won by 2? I think that was last week. But anyways, they're not a good team. I don't think this Miami team is good. I think Florida State is good, and I think they're fairly motivated to sort of right the ship under Mike Norvell. I think they're going to be way more motivated than Miami in this game. So I'll take the Noles. I'll lay the 7.5 there. And then I'll go to another big game. I'll go Alabama, LSU. I'm going to take the under 56.5 here. This is kind of, it's like a two-pronged reasoning for this. I saw the last 10 matchups when these two teams play, the under is 6-2-2. And then when you get into like football, like the strategy of the matchups, the teams this year, it also sort of dictates to me like a lower scoring affair. I think LSU's D-line is very good, and I think they'll be able to slow down the Crimson Tide rushing attack and also get some pressure on Bryce Young. I don't really know, like 13, 14-ish sort of seems about right for me for the spread, so I didn't want to touch that. LSU's offense has taken off the last couple of weeks, but it's been against like arguably the worst two defenses in the SEC, and Ole Miss, Florida, and like Vanderbilt are probably the worst 3 defenses in the SEC. So I don't really buy LSU's offense like getting back on track, righting the ship. I think they're still rather mediocre. I think it's a little bit of fool's gold there. So I'll take the under 56.5 game total there. And then going to the biggest game of the week, biggest game of the year, probably so far this year, I'm going to take the Vols +8.
Wow.
I like it anything over a touchdown here. I think it's the best offense in America. This team isn't quite the 2019 LSU team in terms of like pro talent, but in terms of scoring, and they have a bunch of receivers who can beat guys consistently in one-on-one matchups, which is what they did to Alabama. I think they're going to give Georgia a lot of problems. I don't necessarily know that they'll win, but I like them getting over a touchdown here. Georgia had lost like their best pass rusher probably last week, Nolan Smith. He's done for the year. So I think that'll have an impact. Hendon Hooker will have a little bit more time to throw than maybe he would have if Nolan Smith were to play in this game. But with him out, I think in Tennessee, like kind of one of the secrets, the underrated thing, you probably don't know about this if you didn't look it up like I did earlier this week. Tennessee actually runs the ball more than they throw it. Again, you probably wouldn't know that if you just conventionally think of Tennessee. You think of them chucking it all over the yard. But they're actually pretty good at running the ball. And this Georgia defense can be run on. So, which is different than last year where almost nobody could ever run on them. So I think the sort of not, I don't know, a weakness necessarily of Georgia's defense, but I think at least being able to retain balance is really important for Tennessee in this game. And I think with Georgia showing this year that they can be run on at times, I think it'll allow Tennessee to stay balanced. I think they're going to be able to stay in this game right till the very end. Might have a chance of winning, although I'd pick Georgia to win. But I'll take Tennessee +8.
I don't know about your picks, but anything going up against Kirby Smart and then Brian Kelly, and really, let's be honest, you're disrespecting Josh Gaddis. It kind of made me feel good at all 3 of those selections. I like it. Let's go with the Brandon Justice for the picks.
We'll start out, and you've heard this team several times throughout the season so far, but I'm just an Iowa bettor. I just like to bet Iowa. I think that here's the thing. I like betting well-coached, disciplined teams because the worst things teams can do to themselves is obviously commit penalties and self-inflicted wounds. Well, the worst thing a team can do to itself that I bet on is commit penalties and make self-inflicted wounds. So I like clean teams who don't make a lot of mistakes. Iowa is that. They're also getting a lot of action this weekend. We've got 78% of the money on the Hawkeyes compared to 50% of bets. I've been using, you guys remember I mentioned Tyler Shoemaker's projections over the last season, really. They've been excellent. They were really good last year, but excellent this year. They were on one again last week. They had UConn money line, which was a great pick last week. So in looking into his projections, he's got Iowa as a 1.5 point dog rather than a 3.5 point dog. So I'm sorry, as a 1.5 point favorite as opposed to a 3.5 point dog. So you're getting a lot of value there in Hawkeyes. Let's see here. Iowa's only losses against the spread in their last 6 games is Michigan and Ohio State. I mean, granted, Illinois, Rutgers, Northwestern, not very good. Neither is Purdue. I think Iowa looked a lot better last week offensively. It looked like they finally started to look in the mirror a bit. I think there's certainly a long way to go, but we have some positive developments there, something that just was not true at all so far this season. Let me get a drink real quick. And then we go.
5,000 Hawkeyes. All right. Sorry, let's interrupt.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm just making sure the throat's clear. The fall allergies are coming alive and well here as we speak. So the game's at Notre Dame, so we're going on to South Bend. I was just confirming. I think I've mistakenly called a home game and away game like 6 times this year. So Notre Dame's hosting Clemson, 3.5-point dogs. I love 3.5. It's like my favorite line in the world. I'll always bet it, whether it's the home team getting undervalued or the away team not getting enough. And I think, or vice versa. I think Notre Dame as a home dog is just money here. I love 3.5. I don't think Clemson's that great. They continue to project in the 7 to 10s by computers, and I trust those rankings far more than I do humans at this point, just based on historical data. I just continue to not like Clemson this season. And then elsewhere, if you're looking for vouches, Notre Dame's getting a ton of action. The exact numbers here, they're getting 43% of the money, despite only having 25% of bets. So a pretty substantial difference there. Tyler Shoemaker's projections have it at 1.3, like I said. So really all over Notre Dame this weekend. And then in my last of the 3 legs here, I've got Nebraska and Minnesota. Again, these aren't necessarily – the Iowa play was my play. It just so happened to match with Shoemaker's projections. Notre Dame was my play. It just so happened to match with his projections. But this is truly just a projections play right here. Nebraska and Minnesota over. Shoemaker has it projected at 55.8, but the line's set at 45. Nebraska's last 5 totals were set over 50, and most of them were over the 53 mark. They're 1-4 in those games, but they're well over 50, upwards of nearly 60 in some of those totals. Whereas with Minnesota, they're much lower in their totals, mostly hitting overs. But the difference here is I think Minnesota's defense is getting a little bit too much value. This game projects at 55.8. The line is set at 45. Doesn't get much more plain and simple than that. Take an over, have some value. If you lose, at least you got to spend 4 quarters rooting for points and had some fun doing it. But in all seriousness, obviously, Tanner Morgan's health is a detriment here. But I do think that these 2 teams, especially Nebraska's defense, with how bad it is, will allow a lot of points on Saturday. So those are my 3: Iowa, Notre Dame, and then the over in Nebraska and Minnesota.
Nice selections. I think Michigan fans are hoping that you're going to be right, especially with Notre Dame. Clemson being up there at the number 4 spot has them as public enemy number 1. So much so that Michigan fans have turned into Notre Dame fans, if you can believe that. Well, I'm making my parlay and my 3 picks because they're going to be very similar, and I can put that up on the screen. It is a 3-team Big Ten underdog parlay. I like Maryland on the money line at Wisconsin. I like Iowa on the money line at Purdue. And I like Indiana. I'll take the 14 points. I don't think they're going to beat Penn State outright. But if you look at my 3 games that I'm taking, Maryland actually is getting 4.5. I'll take that. I'll take the 4.5. Iowa is getting 3.5. I'll take that, and I will take Indiana. So those are my 3 picks. And there is my parlay: Maryland outright, Iowa outright, and Indiana plus 14. And you do that because you look up there in the right corner and you see that big number. 1296 if that one comes through. And that's exciting if it ends up working out that way. So let's go back to Lucas, who's sitting around. He won his parlay last week, so he's feeling pretty good about his selections here. Let's see where he's at.
Yeah, I got another college football moneyline parlay here. I'm going to take the same approach I did last week.
I
I'm going to take Texas A&M just to beat Florida. I mentioned earlier I was talking about LSU, but Florida's defense is really, really bad. Specifically lately, it's really falling apart. Billy Napier has sort of discussed this with the media that he has like real depth concerns with this Florida team. He doesn't think he has like a 2 deep and a 3 deep of SEC caliber players, at least yet. So he has expressed that, as injuries start to pile up, it might get sort of ugly for them on defense. And I think Texas A&M, they started a true freshman quarterback last week, Connor Wegman. He was a 4 or 5 star, highly rated guy in their class last year. And I thought the offense shown more signs of life than they have up to this point, which isn't saying a whole lot because they still only put up like 28 points. But I think against this Florida defense, I think this is a spot where you can sort of build confidence with a young quarterback. And I think we can get all they have to do is win. I don't even need them to cover. I'm not messing around with the points. I don't trust them enough to take the points. I just want them to win. So I'll do that. And then Penn State going to Indiana. I think they're going to win that game as well. Too balanced offensively for Indiana to put up with. Too many playmakers. Tucker Washington played really well last week against Ohio State. I don't see Indiana having a very I don't think they're going to be up to the challenge of stopping him. And Nick Singleton, and the other running back, Allen, I think he is also very good. They have 2 running backs that I like, 2 receivers I like, good tight end group. If Sean Clifford just holds on to the ball, they might have beaten Ohio State last week, but unfortunately it did not. I just think they're going to beat Indiana, so I'll take them. Right. And then Oklahoma to beat Baylor. So Oklahoma really struggled early in the year. They've sort of gotten right lately. A lot of that has been Dylan Gabriel just being healthy versus him not being healthy. He is back and healthy now. He's looked a lot better the last couple of weeks. I think they're going to beat Baylor. It's like a 3.5 point spread. I just need them to win this game. So then combine that with Penn State, Texas A&M, it's going to be plus 200 for money line parlay there.
Plus 200 sounds good to me. Justice. He's done everything except hit a multi-team parlay on this show. Maybe this is his week.
Hey,
I think that. Oh, you hit one? Oh, you've hit one.
I'm back to back in the parlay department. Come on.
All right.
Hopefully this one's memorable. Let's start with Temple. I got Temple on the money line against South Florida. Again, another one of those classic underdogs who I'm just going to take the money line instead of taking the points. Happens to work out well for a parlay because obviously those odds are pretty advantageous as a consumer. 93% of the money is on Temple to cover, not so much in the money line department, but on the spread, which is 3.5, Temple is 93% of the money right now. Temple's defense is really good, and I think they're going to pretty much shut down whatever South Florida brings to the table. All the signals are on Temple tonight, and I like Temple in that game for a multitude of reasons, enough to add them into this money line. And then Notre Dame, who I mentioned earlier, we had them last week on the money line against Syracuse, and that helps complete our parlay. That was last week, right? College football season just feels like 1 week to me. So we had Notre Dame last week. We'll have them again this week. Again, we already talked about why I like Notre Dame against Clemson. So we'll move on from that. And then lastly, I know I kind of like crossover episoded this whole selection sheet this week, as you'll be able to notice again when my best bet comes. But my last leg is going to be Iowa money line versus Purdue. Again, that's one of my picks. It's just for me, my approach with parlays is build something attainable, and you can do that in a variety of ways. My approach to it is just if I see an underdog who is getting a lot of attention from bettors, smart bettors, not the public, and they're less than 5.5 points, then sprinkle some money line action on them individually. If you're building a parlay, it's a good team to select to get some plus odds on your slip. So that's mine. Temple, Notre Dame, Iowa, all in the money line. I got the odds on it. Just give me a moment. That's plus 12.99. So Temple's 138, Notre Dame is 140, Iowa's 145, all three together plus 12.99.
Love the big numbers like that. Yeah, Notre Dame killed Syracuse. That was last week. You are correct. How about we go right back to you for your prop of the week?
Oh, dear. I forgot to do my prop of the week. Well, I'll tell you exactly what oh, no, I do have it. Deion Jackson from the Colts is going to start in place of Jonathan Taylor. And he is going up against the Patriots defense. They absolutely maul running backs. They eat them alive. Every week, everyone thinks a really good running back is going to have a really good day against the New England defense, and it just does not happen. It won't happen for Deion Jackson on Sunday. His total is set at 50.5. The projections are all over this one at an under. A lot of people are on it at the under as well. Obviously, Deion Jackson had a phenomenal performance in his debut when he replaced him, but I don't think he's going to come back the same against the defense like the Patriots. So I think you can get some value there. In fact, if I were to give my best advice, I would wait until Sunday because I think there's a chance it's going to go out further because I think a lot of people are going to run and bet it because it's the Colts. But understand that the Colts are banged up on the offensive line. They're missing some of their best offensive linemen. They have not been able to run the ball well at all this year. They haven't been able to do anything on offense well because the offensive line they built their franchise around is just broken in half right now. So Deion Jackson under 50.5 is my prop.
Yeah, I hope you're wrong because I had him as a fill-in for Jonathan Taylor. So I'm hoping you're going to be wrong there, but I'm handcuffed. There's nothing I can do. Let's go down to Lucus.
Yeah, I lost Marquise Brown, Breece Hall, Michael Thomas, somebody else too. It's been a rough year.
Yeah. I had Michael Thomas. I had Javonte Williams.
Oh,
I just keep going down the list. It's been
I was 7-0 with my buddies, and we've had this league for 9 years. I'm 7-0, and I'm like, this never happened before to anybody. And all of a sudden, 4 of my starters in a week's time. You talk about the impact Breece Hall, Marquise Brown, and Michael Thomas can have on a team. It's substantial.
I had Michael Thomas on my team too. Rashad Bateman as well. How about that? Darius Toney. I finally dropped him, and then they traded him to the Chiefs, and he's all right. He was like out, not playing. He gets traded to the Chiefs. He's good to go. So it's been a nightmare. I'm with you on that. All right, Lucas, we're going prop city for you.
Yeah, I'm going to take Marvin Harrison Jr., the over. His at 82.5. Ryan Day mentioned this week JSN might be out for the year. He said he'd be surprised if Jackson Smith take about that is if people don't know. He's probably out for the year. Would be surprised if he comes back. Marvin Harrison Jr. has really stepped up. He's been like the 1A target in that Ohio State passing offense. He really ate last week. They sort of pick on the worst defender in the secondary of whatever team they're matched up against and just throw the ball to Marvin Harrison Jr. And so far it works out against like everybody. So I think they're going to try and keep feeding him. 82.5 seemed kind of low to me. I did see that there's weather, potentially rain in Evanston. They play Northwestern this week.
And you don't care, do you? You're still going with it.
No, I don't care. I just think they're going to feed him, even if it's through screens. I just think they're gonna feed him. I thought about going C.J. Stroud over passing yards, but like I don't know. Like if they get up early, they might just run the ball the rest of the game because they'll probably be able to do that pretty well too against Northwestern. So the one I like the most there is Marvin Harrison Jr. over 82.5 receiving yards. So I'll take that.
I like it. I forgot to ask Justice this question. He told us he was going to be down on the field last week. I saw some of your pictures of what I think was Paul Bunyan and even going up the tunnel. Were you on the field there at the end of the game?
No, I wasn't. I spent the first half on the field and decided just to go up the second half so I could write. We have our post-game story and
smart move.
I mean, just I've never seen anything like it. Never been around anything. I mean, I wasn't there for the actual moment, but I can tell you that the aftermath of the whole situation was just indescribable. I mean, it's just one of those things you don't ever imagine happening, and then when it does, and you're responsible for, covering it and all that, you just feel bad for the kids and hope everyone's okay. Obviously, it's your first thought, but scary stuff, man. That was something. It was the least exciting. It was the least excited I'd ever seen a Michigan football team after a win. I think Blake and JJ were fine in their interviews and their press conference because they didn't know yet. But the vibe from that point on was like bad, like as if they had just lost. And, for good reason because they're worried about, Jamon and Jaden. But yeah, scary stuff, man.
I'm with you. It felt, I don't know if it felt exactly like a loss, but it didn't feel great, the next day. It still really doesn't. So it's just good that they're able to get back there on the field tomorrow. Let me give you a prop. And for that, I'm going to go to Michigan if they score over 37.5 points. I know you guys don't think they're going to do that, but I'm betting it anyways. Plus 125 over 37.5. And then I'll just come right back and give you a lock. I thought about taking the Packers, but I hate the Packers. I like the Ravens. They're playing on Monday night. They get Roquan Smith in a trade. They're going down there to take on the Saints. I like the way the Lamar Jackson is coming on. I don't know Mark Andrews is questioned, but likely has filled in pretty nicely for him there. I love the Ravens to win this game big. I'll gladly lay you the 2.5. That's why I'm making it my lock of the week. And I feel good. I was 3-5, which was disappointing, but I am above 500. I took Oklahoma with my lock last week. They won easily, and that put me above 500 on my locks of the week. This will put me 2 games over 500 on the lock of the week when I see the Ravens take down the Saints on Monday Night Football. All right, that's what we have left is our locks, and we go with the selection to Lucas Reimink, who had his best week of the year last week. So everybody should be excited about his selection here and have their pens ready or their computer or their phones.
Sure. So Justice sort of mentioned this game earlier. I'm going to take the under 44 in Clemson, Notre Dame. It's mostly a fade the quarterback thing here. I don't know. I don't really buy Notre Dame, the get right spot. They beat Syracuse, but I think Syracuse has sort of shown that they're prone to being run on when teams can control the line of scrimmage. That's sort of the weakness of their 3-3-5 style of defense that they play. And that's what Notre Dame did. They just straight up mauled them on the ground. Didn't really even need to throw the ball. I think it's going to be like sort of the other sort of side of the coin here as they match up against this Clemson defensive line. Maybe the best in the country, at least like top 5 in the country, D-line. They're not going to be able to maul Clemson. They're not going to be able to run on Clemson, not even close to what they did against Syracuse. So when you do that, when you have a hard time running the ball, puts a lot of pressure on the quarterback. And no matter who they start at quarterback this year, whether it's Tyler Buckner earlier in the year, it's been Drew Pine lately, he hasn't been good either. I just don't see them having really any success moving the ball against this Clemson defense, at least not enough to do it consistently. And then for Clemson offensively, like the last time we saw them, they were like DJ really struggled as well. DJU got benched in that game. They brought in Cade Klubnik, the freshman, 5-star, to try and spark the offense. That was also when they were playing Syracuse. And the quarterback situation there is a little bit unsettled. Don't really love how either of them looked. And then Notre Dame also plays really good defense. They're one of the only two, like it's them, Penn State, and Iowa have had the most success against Ohio State. That's sort of the bar offensively in the country. And Notre Dame did pretty well. Like they hung in there. They play a lot of man coverage. I don't think Clemson's got the guys to be able to consistently beat them in the man coverage down the field. So I'll take the under 44. I have this as like a 20-17 type game. So that's why I didn't take the 3.5 because I just didn't love it. But I do like the under 44. That's my lock of the week.
Under 44, lock of the week, Clemson, Notre Dame. All right, we got you down. That leaves us with Justice for his lock of the week.
So my best bet was going to be Temple. So, I mean, it still is, but I want to make sure that the show gets some creativity in it because I didn't want to just mock my slip the whole time because it's pretty much all I've done. My parlay was 2 of my 3 picks from my 3 picks. So switch it up here on the fly, but it is a pick I like a lot this week, and it's Texas. I know transitive property, right? Kansas State, 48-0 over Oklahoma State. But Texas is now favored on the road at Kansas State the next week. So I think that, not the same week not the next week that Texas played Oklahoma State, but the next week that Kansas State beat the crap out of them. So with that in mind, Vegas makes this line 2.5. The projections are right around there, and I have a hard time seeing Texas lose this game. I just think that what they did against Bryce Young in Alabama shows that they can stop a running quarterback. I know Adrian Martinez is a little bit different than Bryce Young in a lot of ways, both mostly worse, but I think he might be a better runner in a way. But outside of that, I mean, Adrian Martinez, if he's playing, I can't even keep up with his health anymore, should be, I think, contained in this game because of what Texas put on tape against Alabama. They're not the same team now, but I think they maybe have gotten better as they get healthier. So I like Texas 2.5. I think that there's a mismatch there. Kansas State's pass defense efficiency is right around 54th. The red zone efficiency is 99th. So I think that Texas is going to be able to finish drives, which is like the key in this game. And start looking at finishing drives more if you're at home wondering a metric that you want to look at in determining who you're going to pick tonight, because like Michigan's biggest struggle is they can't finish drives. That was apparent before the game against Michigan State. It's obviously far more apparent after, but it was already bad. And that was a big reason why I was holding back taking them on that spread last week. And we see now why. On Saturday we saw why, at least. So keep that in mind. I think it's a key stat. Texas flips the coin there. They're 35th in the country in red zone efficiency offensively, so I think that'll challenge them quite a bit. So I'll take the Horns here as road favorites at the 2.5 mark as a field goal wins it for you.
We'll put you down also for Xavier Worthy to having a really big game after you talked about that Kansas State defense. So you didn't say that. That's me saying.
Texas.
All right. You sound a little bit like a Quinn Ewers slap, but so I think I am too. So I'm right there with you. All right. Great picks. Everybody, good luck. If you're watching and you're looking at the Maize and Blue review, I put all the locks of the week in the thread. So you don't even have to go to the end of the show. You can just look at it right there on the Den. All right, guys. Good luck. Have a great week.
You too, sir. Appreciate it.
There he is. Brandon Justice, you too. Lucas, you have a good week.